So welcome everybody. It's 12 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, so we're ready to get this webinar going. Hopefully my sound's coming through all loud and clear. My name is Hillary Hayes, and I work for Utah State University for the Center of Employment and Inclusion. And my role here at Utah State University is to provide training and technical assistance to service providers who provide vocational related supports to individuals with disabilities. And I also help facilitate and host webinars. And my position here at Utah State University was made possible because we've partnered with Department of Workforce Services, the Utah State Office of Rehabilitation, and with their funding and support, we're able to provide these free trainings and webinars to you guys as service providers. So they're awesome. Just a couple things before we get started. Just please keep your microphone muted throughout this webinar. But if you do have any questions or comments, you can type them into the chat box and we'll address them, or you can unmute yourself and ask your questions throughout this training. And in the chat box, I will also upload a copy of a PDF form of the PowerPoint that Jason and Kent are going to be presenting. And because it's a grant-funded project with the Department of Workforce Services, I'm required to collect data on what we do in regards to training. So at the end of the webinar, I'll also post a link to an anonymous evaluation. Please take a couple minutes to fill that out. It really helps us know how we're doing in regards to training and lets us know what you guys as service providers want us to, help facilitate and train on in the future. And we have another webinar coming up next month on December 9th, which will be on mental health and suicide prevention in the workplace. I'll post a link to our website in the chat box as well. So if you'd like to attend that webinar or any future webinars, you'll have a link to our website. And on our website, we also have a ton of pre-recorded webinars we've done in the past that you guys can view. And this one will also be posted on our website in the next day or so. And then also at the end of the webinar, I'm going to upload a copy of your certification of completion so you can prove that you attended this webinar today. So now with all that said, I'm really excited to have Kent Remund here and Jay Wheeler. Kent has worked in the field of assistive technology for the last 24 years, I believe, and in a variety of settings. And he's the current project director at the Utah Center for Assistive Technology, UCAT. And Jay has been an occupational therapist along the Wasatch Front for over 20 years. And he has a lot of experience working with individuals with disabilities. So take it away.
Great, thank you. Thanks for having us. So that was a little introduction to each of us. Probably good enough. Again, my name is Kent Remund, just to put a face with the name. Currently the director for the Utah Center for Assistive Technologies, and I've been in many different roles here. I've also worked at the Independent Living Center in Logan, Utah. That's kind of where I got my start in the field of assistive technology and found my passion for the rest of my career there. And that was in 1997, so quite a while ago. I've seen a lot of changes over the years with assistive technology as far as iPads, as you can think, things going to the cloud, a lot of technology being included in platforms, Word, our phones, computers, you can guess it. So I've seen a lot of changes over the years. I'll let Jay introduce himself and then we'll just kind of get going on this.
Hi, I'm Jay Wheeler. I'm an occupational therapist, and I've started at Kids on the Move in Orem, did early intervention. Then I was at the School for the Deaf and Blind for 12 years as their occupational therapist that covered basically like Bountiful South for the rest of the state. And I've worked in home health with adults, geriatric and pediatric in home health. And I've always wanted to work with UCAT. I first was introduced to it when I was on the UATT team for the School for the Deaf and Blind. And I probably wanted to finally got my chance. So I'm happy to present what we've been working on and what we can help, how we can help you with your clients.
Yeah, great. So today we have a PowerPoint here. I'm assuming everyone can see this. I've shared my screen. Can you see that, Jay? You can beat my.
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. So we have an overall presentation on assistive technology today. Typically, we try to structure it based on the population of people that are joining us. But with this webinar, I know we have so many different people out there, from possibly OTs, service providers, other professionals, clients, families. We just have a general assistive technology overview of this. A couple things that we'll be going into, if my slideshow will advance. We'll tell you a little bit about the Utah Center for Assistive Technologies, who we serve, how to make a referral to us. We're going to quickly go over the framework that we use to evaluate people. We think that's important to show that we focus on the individual and try to find their needs. I'll tell you a little bit about the Utah Assistive Technology teams that are in each of the schools. And then probably half of our presentation today, we're going to show you some things that we've created or modified or custom created for clients. It's something very unique that we do here at UCAT that kind of goes beyond just an evaluation of assistive technology needs. And we ask people to, when they're working with individuals or they have a disability, there's a lot of things on the shelf, off the shelf, that we can purchase or that we can get, but a lot of times it doesn't fit or work for that individual. And it's something very important that we have, is this ability to custom create or modify something so that it can fit the needs of individuals. We can tell you a little bit about abandonment with assistive technology, when and why that happens. But if you get 10 people with cerebral palsy, or let's say MS, and then I'll put them in the room, they're all going to have different abilities, limitations, and we want to make sure that anything that we're providing them, we match to their needs and their abilities so that they can use that effectively. So it's very important, and it's much more exciting than our slideshows that our slides that we show you, kind of death by PowerPoint. So, but about half of our presentation, I'll tell you about UCAT and the basics of assistive technologies to lay a framework that way. So for the Utah Center for Assistive Technologies, we serve anyone in the state of Utah. We're state funded. Anyone can come and ask for an evaluation of our services. They don't need to have somebody refer them to us. Somebody could just call us on the phone or email us or get a referral form that we'll show you here in a second. So they could self-refer. We don't require doctor prescriptions, anything along those lines. We don't even ask for proof of a disability. If somebody has some barriers or limitations that they have in their life, we're just trying to find the best way for that individual to get past those. So that's our main purpose, is we do evaluations. We'll get into a lot of the things that we modify and build. I've mentioned that just a little bit. Very important to our evaluations is a loan library that we have. We have, I would guess, well over $1 million worth of equipment that we can allow individuals to borrow and see if it's going to work for them. If somebody was to come in to be evaluated for any limitation or barrier that they might have, we may find a solution that we think is going to work. Let's say, for example, somebody with limited range of motion wants to use the computer again. We can find some different ways for them to do that. And then we like for them to borrow or trial equipment so that we can feel comfortable then recommending it to another agency to purchase or for that individual to purchase. So it's very important to do those trials. Our whole goal, our mission of UCAT is just to help any individual become more independent, maintain their independence, just based on any disability that they might have. That's our main goal, from anywhere from communication to mobility to something even as simple as, let's say, changing the channel on their television right? Something happens because of a disability or maybe an injury, and it's very important just to have quality of life, right? If you can change the channel on your television by yourself rather than waiting for a loved one or family member to come in and change the channel from some awful show that you're not wanting to watch and you're just laying there watching it without the ability to do it, we're happy to find ways that somebody can be independent that way and just do simple things like that. So and then the final thing is, unfortunately, we're not a funding source. Our main purpose are those evaluations to see what item or device might help somebody, but we don't have any money to fund that. We'll get into some of the funding options in just a little bit, but we do that evaluation, find the correct device, and then we have to try to find somebody else that will help with the funding of that. So. And as mentioned, you guys can chime in anytime you'd like, or if you put something in the chat box as we go through this, feel free to ask any questions. So agencies that we partner with most frequently are vocational rehabilitation. I would guess over half of our evaluations come from them. We are actually employees of vocational rehabilitation, which we're also under Department of Workforce Services. So the majority of our evaluations come from Voc Rehab. As you can see here, any of these that have the asterisks, they have an assistive technology specialist that can help them with evaluations and try to find the correct technology to meet the needs of that individual. So for Voc Rehab, UCAT is the assistive technology specialist, and we help most of the rehabilitation counselors across the state to find the needs of their clients. We work a lot with independent living, but they also have assistive technology specialists in each of the centers, from Logan, Ogden, Salt Lake, Provo, Price, St. George, and then they have some satellites. But they have an assistive technology specialist that they can, if you're a member or if you go through independent living services, they can evaluate. We work a lot with Division of Services for People with Disabilities, and they have an assistive technology specialist that can help. Utah Center for Persons with Disabilities up at Utah State University, they do a lot of different services that they can help individuals meet their needs for assistive technology services and devices. We work a lot with the Parent Center. They do have individuals that are very knowledgeable in the field of assistive technology, but a lot of times they refer their clients over to us for us to do the evaluations. And then we do a lot with hospitals and clinics, other professionals, OTs, PTs, speech therapists. A lot of people reach out to us just to have an evaluation done. Intermountain Healthcare does have a new assistive technology program that they're starting up. Kevin Christensen, that used to work here at UCAT, moved over to IHC, and he's starting, they're in the beginning phases of kind of ramping up their assistive technology needs over there. So those are the main that we work with. And then, like I said, anyone can even just call in off the street. If they needed help with anything, they can get our services.
And that does happen. People come in just out of the blue, like, hey, I need help. I heard this is where I go. And then we help them make their own referral, get things going for them, and evaluate them and help them in any way we can.
Right, yeah. So within the state of Utah, this gives us, that gives you a pretty good idea that there's a good resource here in Utah, a good network of assistive technology professionals and agencies that can help with assistive technology needs. If, for example, you're outside of the state of Utah, I was told that we might have some people join us that are not in Utah. There is a national program. The Utah Assistive Technology Act was first created in 1998, but was reauthorized in 2004, which then started funding each state with assistive technology money for them to provide services for the individuals in their state. Every state can use their money different. They all have, I think, a framework that they work off of, but each can kind of tailor it to their state's population and what they feel is important. But if you go to this at3center.net, there's a you can find your state, and then there's a list of support or areas that they can help out with. So UCAT is actually not the Assistive Technology Center here for the state of Utah. That is through the Center for Persons with Disabilities up at Utah State University, and they direct this. Kind of a long story about how UCAT was created. We were actually a project that they started from this. It was about in 1989. Eventually Voc Rehab took us under their wings, and we kind of became our own agency that helped provide assistive technology evaluations for individuals. USU does a lot more training, but they also do evaluations. They do outreach. They do a whole bunch of stuff that we don't do. We mainly work just with individuals where they have a different focus on reutilizing equipment. And we'll get into some of this here in just a little bit. But for those of you that are not in the state of Utah or have family members or individuals in different states, this is a place where you can at least get basic information on these areas of assistive technology. There's phone numbers and emails, and you can reach out to them and they can give you more information based on what's available in each state. So this is our staff at UCAT. You've met Jay and myself here. This is our contact information. And I should say, and I forgot to, on one of our first slides, well, let me go back to that. There is a short link here. I guess you were going to send that out though, weren't you, Hillary? Okay. You could go to this short URL at AT anyway, or you can, I'll give you just a second if you wanted to snap a screenshot of the QR code that will take you to this presentation. Just give you 1 second there. And I was going to mention that each of our contact information is on this slide that I'm on. If you needed to reach out to us and ask us any questions, you're welcome to do that. Jay's information and my information here. Just to quickly go through the specialist that we have, this is Ken Reed. He does a lot of our mobility assessments, van modifications, and he's kind of our funding specialist here that can help find the funding that somebody might need. Work through insurance, Medicare, Medicaid. He has a lot of those answers to those questions, as well as other resources that are out there. Utah State University has a great grant program where they will offer grants up to $400. This is their small grant program. They also have another program where they can get low interest loans. And he knows these and many, many, many other funding opportunities. We have Tom Bowman. He's kind of our all-around assistive technology specialist. He does everything from computer work to 3D printing, smart home modifications, you name it. Tom kind of does a little bit of everything. He's our go-to, just very eager to learn new things, all the new technology that's coming out. He's been with us since, I believe, March, and has been a great pickup for us. Ed Whiting runs our shop, where you'll see a lot of our projects here. The second half of our evaluation, of our presentation, but he does also a lot of evaluations of home accessibility. He can figure out what type of ramp or lift or grab bars, anything in the home that would allow somebody to be more independent within their house. Austin Oseguera, he works with the Utah Assistive Technology teams. We'll get to those here in just a second. There's also another trainer that works as the assistive technology trainer. We're in between positions there. We're thinking this position may open the first of the year. And this works very specifically with 30 teams across the state. I have a slide here in just 1 second. if anyone might be interested in this position, like I say, it might be opening in January or so. Austin held that position, and now he's the Assistive Technology team project manager. So, and then we have Michael Offit that knows all things computer, or most things computer. We run a program where vocational rehabilitation sends us old computers that staff have been using. He refurbishes those, cleans them off, gets those prepared for vocational rehabilitation clients to then use those through training and schooling. So that is just an overview of the staff that we have here at UCAT.
And the computer loaning program, we typically get what, 80 to 100 laptops every year, and because of COVID and everything that's gone on, our stock is dropping off drastically. And so if you do need somebody that needs a laptop, they may have to accept a desktop, or we may have to find another funding source for a laptop in the future if we don't get more soon.
Yeah, correct. So to make a referral to UCAT, here's our awfully long link. If you have the PowerPoint open, that will take you to it. Or it's usually easiest if you Google UCAT, UCAT. Typically, we are the first and sometimes the second link down as you do a search, Google or any of the other search engines. You should be able to find us most easily there. There's a link to click this referral form. We ask for pretty basic information, name, address, city, and then we're asking for what area of assistive technology they might need, their disability, that's important for us, of course. And then you can't quite see that on this, but towards the bottom, there's a field where we ask you to just, whether it's you or if you're referring for somebody else, just put the idea of what the individual is looking for, some of the things that they would like to do, what their goals are. And that will give us an idea of who to assign that to from those last pages, or that last page that you saw our specialist. Each of us kind of have that certain area, and we distribute these referrals as they come in based on what the specialty is of that individual. Many times we create a team and we might go out with 2 or 3 people to do an evaluation. So very easy to get, and then we, most of the time we like them sent to this email address, ucat@utah.gov. You can fax them in, but we've got a funny little fax system here where they took away our fax machine and it goes to a general folder on a server, and sometimes we don't see those for a couple days. So it's best if you can email those to us. You can like us on Facebook. Just search for the Utah Center for Assistive Technologies. We update that with just new projects, new things, cool devices or services that come out. And we'll sometimes put our favorite little projects that we're working on just to kind of keep that updated and let everyone stay in the loop of what we're doing.
And if you are filling out a referral for a client that you have, we don't need a lot of information like in-depth medical history, but specific things like if it's for a younger person or someone who is not able to advocate for themselves and the parents or guardian wants us to contact them, please put that in there. Also, just then the more general information you can give us to start, the better, because we're not a funding source, so we don't have to prove disability. But if there is a disability that impacts it in a specific way, the more information that we can get, the kind of the better we can decide who is going to work with that person and what team we're going to send out to do the evaluation.
Right. Thanks for adding that, Jay. And I should mention also that we work with anyone in the state of Utah. I did mention that, but of any age. So you name it, and we'll look at anything that could meet the needs of an individual from birth to death, anywhere along those lines. So the evaluations that we do most often, we do a lot of computer access or tablet access, ways that people can use their phones, tablets, computers, maybe touch-free, maybe by voice, maybe through eye gaze, head movements. We've got a ton of different options for people to still use their computers, phones, or tablets. We do some vehicle modifications, or at least recommendations of what might be needed for an individual to transport a wheelchair or to possibly drive a vehicle independently through hand controls or anything along those lines. We can evaluate driving and vehicle.
And there's been quite a bit of recently confusion about what we actually do. Just so everybody knows that does the referrals, we do not modify vehicles ourselves. We make the recommendations, and then they need to go out to professional mechanics, because you're putting your life in your hand of your mechanic when you put your controls in a car, and it needs to work right. So just so everybody knows, we evaluate and we recommend, but we do not install any controls or lifts or anything in a car.
Right, but we have very good communication and a relationship with, there's 3 major vendors out there, or mechanics, that they're licensed and insured to do all of this work. And we work very closely with them and can guide you in that direction. Of course, so and a lot of these things, this is a good example to mention here, that we're non-biased, right? And so if you come to us and say, hey, I'm looking to overcome this limitation that I have in my life, I have a goal to do this, we're not going to look at a particular product. We may have some that we really enjoy, that we like, but we're non-biased, and we're not going to try to push you some direction where maybe if you go to a vendor, they might push you towards what's going to make them the most money, right? You hate to say that, but it just happens. We're very non-biased. We're going to look at a lot of solutions and try to find the best one to fit that individual's needs. So we do a fair amount of communication evaluations, anywhere from very low tech. Well, I have some more slides of these, low tech to very high tech, but we do a lot of communication evaluations for individuals, children that are nonverbal, that may have, autism or some reason to give them where they don't have the ability to communicate. People with ALS, strokes, you name it. If somebody's lost their ability to communicate, there's a lot of different options for somebody to still be able to communicate or get their wants and needs addressed. Jay does a lot of ergonomic workstations. We'll go out to somebody's workplace and evaluate their workstation. If it needs to be raised or lowered, or an ergonomic chair, a standing desk, different lights, you name it, we can look at all sorts of different work accommodations, work ergonomics, from chairs to keyboards to mice. We're looking to extend somebody's ability to work productively so they don't fatigue easily, whether it's a short-term fatigue or if they exacerbate something that may prevent them from working in the future. So,
and also I wanted to go back to talk about, Ken was talking about us being non-biased, and we're not. When I am talking with a client, I really focus and work on finding out what is right for them, and not just spending a bunch of money just to make things work, or trying to lowball everything just so we can stay in budget, but making whatever recommendation is right and helps them the most, because that's going to help mitigate AT abandonment, which is we'll talk about soon, but it's a really important element of the evaluation.
Right. And also good to mention probably here also that we try to look at needs from low cost to high cost, low tech to high tech. If somebody needs to open or close the door of their home, we're not going to automatically jump to a door opener that may be $2,000 or $3,000. We're going to see if maybe a rope or something on a door would work just as well for an individual, because then you can get it done quick and easy, and we're not out there trying to find a $2,000 door opener. Where when Jay started with us, he went out and helped somebody with a sliding door. I think you did just that, right? I don't know.
Yeah, my very first day on the job, I went out and put straps on either side of this guy with quadriplegia's screen door, so now he could independently open and close his screen door and go out on his little patio. And it was 20 minutes of work and very low tech and worked great.
Yeah. So we'll always look at the simplest, cheapest, and best option before we start going through to higher price things. But we do a lot with mobility aids, from crutches to walkers, wheelchairs, you name it. Some environmental controls, as you can guess, with Alexa and the Google Home, it's becoming more widely known, but we can give some instruction that way. I'd mentioned changing channels on the television and just some different things like that, turning lights on and off, fans, heaters. We'll go out and we'll evaluate for ramps and lifts. And then we do a lot with switch access, whether it's opening a door to playing with a toy, or you name it, clicking with a mouse. There's a lot of switch options, and we probably have well over 50 switches that serve different purposes or needs for an individual that we can get into. So I mentioned our Utah Assistive Technology teams. There's 30 teams across the state of Utah. You can see where each of the team is based here. Some of these in the rural areas serve multiple districts. But any student in the school system K through 12 has access to these assistive technology teams. And so if the student is on an IEP or 504, IDEA mandates that these students have access to assistive technology. There's an IEP form, an individual education plan form, and assistive technology is so important that there is a question on this one-page form that's created for an IEP that says, has assistive technology been considered for this individual? We're finding that a lot of times this is kind of skipped over, that they say, oh, assistive technology, that's for a wheelchair. You know, that's for the student that needs a wheelchair or something very major in their life. They don't consider assistive technology being something that could be very simple. So if we have a student that has an IEP for, let's say, something reading at a certain level, or something along those lines, there's a lot of assistive technology that can help an individual with reading. The highest disability category for students is learning disabilities. And there's a lot of different things that can help with reading and writing. We've created this this assistive technology consideration checklist to give these IEP teams and other professionals an idea of what's available in different categories. So we have seating and positioning, reading, writing, computer access. We go through a whole bunch of different categories on the front and back page of this. And then it gives options of what is out there and what could possibly be used to assist this individual with their educational experience, and doesn't just have to be in education. It could be along these lines, but it starts giving an idea to start thinking outside of the box. And that with reading, maybe that's further in my presentation. I thought I had it right here.
I just wanted to go back to the IEP. So someone asked a question about that sometimes the box is already checked that no, they don't need it. That's really bad. That should not happen in the IEP. And if you are in the IEP as an occupational therapist, PT, speech pathologist, teacher, whatever your capacity is, you have the right to stop and say, look, this needs to be really looked at. It can't just be like, oh, there's no need, so we're just going to ignore it. It's in protocol of the IEP for a reason, and it's not just so it can be another box that's checked. So you have full license to stop everything and say, has this really been looked at? Is there an assessment? You can be forceful with that, because it's a very necessary part. I mean, it could be maybe they just need a pencil grip. That's assistive technology. Or it could be that they need a $20,000 eye gaze computer. We're going to get into the evaluation process, but it's a very important thing for you to advocate in an IEP meeting if you're there.
Yes, thank you. And I'm sorry, I didn't have the chat box open. I do have it open now and see that it's been very active. Thank you for adding those things. And I'll touch on that. I'll try to give some examples as I go through this, just so it's not just based off these slides. And I can touch on that also, where that box was checked in many occasions. We had an individual, we got called out to go down, and this was actually vocational rehabilitation. It was a client that was in transition, and he asked us to go evaluate this student that was in high school, a senior in high school. He was probably 2 months from graduating, and the vocational rehabilitation counselor said, hey, after school, as they go into adulthood, their goal is to start a computer program. This individual had muscular dystrophy, and his whole high school career, he had had an aide that had done everything for him on the computer, from his tests to his assignments, and he would just speak those to that individual, to the student aide. We went in, and long story short, after about an hour of looking at his abilities, we set up a camera on the screen, and there's a little dot that can track where head movement goes, and then he could click and do mouse clicks by himself. Within just 5 or 10 minutes, we set him up to independently use his computer on his own. We then showed him how to access speech to text. Within half an hour, he was independently using the computer like crazy. He was searching for all sorts of stuff. He had never done it. He'd only watched people up until that point. A couple months before graduation, when we first went in the classroom, the teacher was kind of looking at us like, what are you guys doing here? You know, and later she came over and said, I'm so embarrassed. I never considered any of this technology. I can't believe that we were having somebody do everything for him when he could have been doing this himself. And so because that box was always checked, they had considered assistive technology. Their idea of giving him assistive technology was giving him a student aid, right? And how does that help him at any point, especially as he transitions out of school? So yes, and thanks for the comments. Advocate for yourself, for your students, and those that you're helping out. So very, very, very important. Typically on these assistive technology teams, there's speech therapists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, teacher. There's typically 6 to 12 individuals on these teams that can help do the evaluations. And they have the full ability just to choose however they need with, and they're employees of the district. And we just support those through an interagency agreement or grant that we get through the Board of Education. So I'll try to start going a little bit quicker here. Very, very quickly, but we do like to touch on this. Assistive technology has 2 parts. The first is the device, which we always think about, the wheelchair, the walker, the whatever it might be. Just as important, or sometimes maybe more important, is the service that goes behind selecting the device, obtaining it for the individual, and properly setting it up. As you can guess, you know, maybe you've got a new piece of technology and it might be difficult to learn at first. If it's not set up correctly, abandonment happens and it just ends up on the shelf, and that's the last thing we want. So for it to work properly, we need a good evaluation, a proper evaluation. Of course, we have to obtain it and then set it up on the back end. So extremely important is that service that goes along with that. And very quickly, low tech, mid tech, high tech, as you can guess. Very little training, very little maintenance. That's the strap on the door, you know, to something mid-tech starts to have some batteries. It requires a little bit more training. High-tech devices can be very complex. They can do a lot more, but they cost more money and they can break. So just kind of an idea of the hierarchy of assistive technology. This is the framework that we use to evaluate individuals. We've kind of taken this from the school system uses this across the nation. Many thousands of professionals use this. And it's a framework called SET, student or client. We look at the environment, the task, and then the tools. So we want to go through this process where it really slows us down. We start asking a lot of questions about the individual. What are their likes? What are their dislikes? What's their disability? What are their limitations? You know, we don't necessarily have to go in the order. A lot of times when we're finding out about the individual, we might be learning about tasks that are needing to be, that they're looking to do. But we always kind of come back and we're wanting to learn more about that individual. We want to know where they want to use this technology. Is it in the home? Is it in the bathroom, the classroom, the playground, the pool, if they need to communicate and they're having a hard time communicating in a location where they can't use an iPad for some reason. We don't want to jump to the technology is the point of this framework. And we want to slow us down so we can consider things. Once we finally get to the tools, we have the full idea of what that individual's needs are, what their abilities are, what they're able to use. And this has helped us in so many occasions where sometimes we'll jump to the technology. I've done it many times myself where, you know, I jump to the technology and then I go back and say, hey, here's an iPad. Would you like to use this? For example, a student in the classroom. No, I'd never use that. Why wouldn't you use that? Nobody else has one. Why would I use that? I'd look different. People would make fun of me. Oh, okay. Well, we didn't ask enough questions to find out whether something's going to work. That's just one of many, many, many examples. And like I said, I've done it many times myself where I've jumped to the technology too quickly instead of finding out the whole story of this individual. So for communication, we have the low tech, and this goes along with a lot of different technology from just picture communication to mid tech, where we start to add batteries. It does have some voice output. These things are very durable, fairly moderate cost. These GoTalk 20s that are used by many, many individuals, these are about $200 to $300. But there's 20 buttons on this that they can push. You can record a voice on it, and then it will speak what that individual wants to say. You can actually pull the template out from the side and slide a new one in. I believe you can have 8 templates on here. So if somebody's in a math class, everything's pre-programmed. You click this to take it to level number 2, and they could be in reading class or recess or bathing needs, nighttime things that they're doing in morning time. So it's a great little solution. And then we have high-tech communication from an iPad to eye gaze devices that can be anywhere from $1,000 to $15,000. Quite complicated. They allow somebody to do more. Of course, we think of Stephen Hawking's with high-tech devices where you can, of course, write your thesis on the black holes or whatever you might need to do. Gives you a higher ability to communicate, but it can also slow somebody down on occasion. So
it does take more training and support so that you don't abandon it, because you can get a really expensive piece of equipment, and if there's not support and training, they can just not utilize it and not use it, and you've wasted a lot of money and time.
Correct. Yeah. And you're not.
I saw that happen in schools all the time.
Right. So many times we come back to this low tech. You know, people think that an iPad's going to be that magical device, and it just isn't for so many reasons, whether it's too complicated or touch screens give us so many problems with individuals that just don't have that good ability to touch and release. There's so many opportunities where it creates more problems than it hurts. And so many times with communication, we go back to just simple low-tech communication. So, let's see, we have about 15 minutes left. We'll get through some of these. This will give you an idea of some of the custom solutions that we come up with for people. I'll let Jay explain a bunch of these. He's done some of them and I've done a couple, but we'll just move through these.
So this was a person that had tremors, couldn't write very well. She didn't have to write very much, but she did have to write her name. And so with the appropriate evaluation, I was able to determine that 200 grams was the correct amount of weight to put on her pen. And so in our shop, I welded up 3 concentric pipes and ground it down until it weighed 200 grams. And I made it so that it could fit the disposable Bic pens, so she could have as many as she wanted to put into it. And as you can see, it really helped it out. And that's like pretty low tech assistive technology device that really helped out.
Yeah, much more clear as far as her writing was concerned. And then you can see some pictures of just how he created that. A really great solution. You want to tell him about the pizza cutter? You
So
know
this
a little
guy,
bit about
this one is, there's a young man that works at Little Caesars. He is completely blind and has left hemiparesis. So he's not able at all. Nope. Yeah, he's right hemiparesis. I'm sorry. His left hand is his more functional side. So his job is to stretch and orient the dough for cutting out the cheesy breadsticks, but he has a very difficult time with one hand and no vision orienting and then cutting. So Ed Whiting, another guy who works with us, you saw, he's been working on this, and he's been developing this cutter for him to make one pass, and eventually it's going to have like angle iron on the side, and you can see those 2 bolts. It's going to provide the pressure and guide it for him so that he can keep working and do this job more efficiently. And also, when you think of universal technology, universal assistance, this also could help anybody at Little Caesars to make that cut. If they want to replicate this, it would speed up their process greatly by only having to make one cut. So universal design also can help that young man and everybody else. And it's still in prototype. It's not completely done yet. This is a Go Baby Go program, which was started at University of Delaware. And I'm sure many of you have seen this. The technology is advancing. We're using more powerful cars with like 4-wheel drive and multiple seating. There's a little guy with Pfeiffer syndrome that I was his therapist in home health, and we got him hooked up with this. This was quite a while ago, but the cars are activated by a switch. And now there are cars that we do that you can get with a grant. We just did help a family get one with the grant for UATT. The car also has a remote control that the parents can control so that they can steer straight and maybe only turn on the power to drive. And this other little guy we're working with, he is blind and autistic and does not use his hands. As many children who are developing who are blind don't use their hands because of tactile defensiveness and everything that goes along with it. So he only used his forehead. So we've created this car that he has to find the switch with his hand, and we're pairing, when he hits the switch, it not only turns on the car, but it turns on music on an MP3 player, because music is very motivating for him. So we are in the process of doing that as well. And you can see also in this video that we would modify for someone that does not have very good postural control so they can do it safely. But this is a national program, and we're in it. Yeah. Okay. And then anything switch adapted, almost anything can be adapted by a switch. And this is a ball throwing system for a dog that the young man could operate himself with a switch that was put on. So
yeah, just recreational.
Yeah.
Right. Quality of life.
Yeah.
So we can adapt a lot of different things like this. This is something just off the market. Why they have a ball thrower with a remote control, I don't know. I guess if you're sitting on your patio and just want to throw that for your dog, it's available, and then we just adapted that. So, and we can do a whole bunch of different things, from toys to door openers, like I'd mentioned. and all the different switches we have. So.
So one of the hardest things for someone with disabilities to get practice with is driving. So we as a team decided we were going to pair a driving video game and driving video game setup with, you can see the hand controls. So we welded up a cross piece, and we can swap out various hand controls so that the driver, the person that's playing the game, can actually practice using hand controls in a lifelike setting to get as much experience and practice as possible, and also to determine what style of hand control they can try before it's put in their vehicle. And actually, I am leaving for St. George to take this with me and evaluate 2 young men that are living down there. And I'm pretty excited about the application of it, because there's just nothing, we haven't had anything like this before. So we just created it, and it's so far it's working really well.
Yeah, we've had many people come to us, and that's their goal. That's their dream, is to be able to drive. Some never thought they'd be able to, and we put them in and give them the ability to drive, use turn signals, wiper blades, all sorts of things. Somebody that's paralyzed. So there's a lot of adaptations that can be done to allow somebody to still drive and be independent that way.
This is something that was created by the last occupational therapist here. There's Kevin Christensen. This person, you see her wrist is in extreme flexion, and she was having to have surgery to allow her wrist to straighten out. So, and she really wanted to drive. And so Kevin just adapted the steering knob to put a handle on it so that we could just use the ability she has now and adapt the car to her. So it was very effective, not too expensive, and worked really well for her. We are particularly excited about this project. A gentleman contacted us about 2 weeks ago. He's been contacted by Google Stadia to test out games with someone who has a disability, and this gentleman has C6 quadriplegia. So Xbox already has, you can see the pad, that's a product that you can purchase. And then the buttons are actually from Logitech, which go along with it. But I'm not satisfied with any of the joysticks that are out there. And so we are going to start 3D printing probably next week, these sticks that are going to be modified to activate the thumb controls. And if anybody's a gamer like myself, you know, you have to, and he wants to play serious games like Destiny and Halo and things where you have to be aware of the XYZ axis and hit buttons. So we are going to sit with him once we create this switch system. And the other image is actually a wheelchair joysticks that he actually has on his chair, and I showed him that. He's like, "Oh yes, I have that. I know how to use that." So we'll 3D print that because he can't use the sticks. And so once we get it all put together, he'll come in and we will lay out everything on a board that he can access easily, so he can play the entirety of the game, which is a lot of information. I don't know how many people are gamers, but there's quite a bit of information you have to access by different switches and combination of switches and how you use the thumbsticks. And so we're really excited about this project. This was definitely before me, but we've, Kent probably have more experience with these young ladies.
Yeah, let me tell you a little bit about some of them. This was our most recent conjoined twins that were contacted us to help them with a couple different needs. This is a little jumper that was created to help them gain strength in their legs. You can see that they're conjoined just here at the hip, and conjoined into two different girls here. Interesting enough, this is the second set of conjoined twins with this same conjoined right in the same area. The Heron twins, many, many years ago, I believe they're about 19 now. We assisted them with a car seat, but we did also with these conjoined twins. And we've done 3 altogether and have helped a lot of people across the nation just with some ideas on how to create a car seat for conjoined twins. As you can guess, you can't just walk down to the store and get a car seat for conjoined twins. We've modified seats to try to make it as safe as possible to transport some of these conjoined twins. Tried to over-engineer, tried to safely allow somebody to do it. Our idea is that something is better than nothing. There was a parent that contacted us. Her babies were connected at the chest. They never were expected to live, but they did, and they would just put them on the back seat of their car. Very, very unsafe. We created something for them with that idea of something's better than nothing, and just try to do the best that we can to allow families to get to the doctor and to continue to live their lives. So this was a little project that we did for the car seat and the jumper for these conjoined twins. Let's see, we've got a couple more minutes. I'll move through these pretty quickly. This is a project that we did, a standing wheelchair. Her goal was to dance and cheer. And as you can see in her chair here, she did a great job doing that. This was a chair that we took. It's actually reversed. It's typically positioned the other way, but we took the chair that was donated to us, and then we took some seating from another chair and kind of put this together to meet her needs and give her the support that she needed to dance and do the nene and many other whatevers they're doing these days, right? So just a fun one. But then it also gave her the ability to do stuff around the house. You can see just a little example of here how she was able to help put the dishes away. I mean, stuff like that, just independence in your life, just quality of life is beautiful. We love doing these types of projects. We do need to mention that there is the Assistive Technology program, Salt Lake. Sorry, I always mess it up. They used to be called Create, but they do the refurbish wheelchairs. This is actually connected to our building. Isn't a part of UCAT. It's actually out of the Utah Assistive Technology program out of USU, but based here in Salt Lake. But they refurbish wheelchairs, many times gently used chairs that are donated. A power chair can typically get for 250 plus batteries, which puts it maybe around $450. A really great chair for $450. Excellent price, where these can be from $6,000 to $30,000. Manual wheelchairs around $150. Walkers, but it's a great resource to get gently used equipment at an incredible price. And you can find their website here, or you can create, or you can Google Utah Assistive Technology Program, Salt Lake. A famous one that we've done, this was Steve Townsend many years ago. He was our OT. He created this cookie dispenser. He had an individual that would come home from work and they were alone for a couple hours. They needed a snack. I believe they needed to regulate their blood sugar level. And so he created this just made out of PVC pipe, cut it, heated it, bend it, maybe less than $5. In the morning, his help would put the cookies down in here. He'd drive over it to in his wheelchair, and he couldn't grab the cookies to put them in his mouth, so he's just able to just reach over and have some cookies. So great one that we did. I'll skip through this super quick. It's something that we can help somebody with a tremor, just something off the shelf that we can provide for individuals. Or we have these that individuals can try out
Yeah.
We've had a lot of people borrow these just to see how they're going to work. For them.
We have them in our library. People can borrow them, and then they're about, depending upon the product, they're about $250 to $300 to purchase. But if you have tremors and you're not able to eat using a spoon or a fork very easily, and this is an internal gyroscope and motor that senses your tremors and stabilizes what you're eating, and it makes a huge difference for people that could not eat independently because of tremors.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. We do a lot of with mounts on wheelchairs, beds, you name it. We've got a lot of different mounts that people can try and use out and try out, sorry, to see if it's going to work for them before they purchase it or before we recommend it. We do a lot with workstations.
And so these are, we evaluate the people that want to do either work from home or work in an office. And you can see the one on the lower left, that is a zero gravity chair. That's a pretty high-tech ergonomic workstation. There are a lot of people we work with have so much pain that they can't sit in a typical chair for very long, and they also can't stand. What we're doing right now to make this more affordable is you can see the arch that the monitors and the keyboard and everything are on. That unit itself is in its varying configuration. It goes anywhere from $4,000 to $7,000. So what we're trying to do is we're creating that arch and building it out of ABS plastic, and it's currently in prototype phase, where we can take that $4,000 to $7,000 price tag and hopefully knock it down to less than $1,000, so they can work in for longer periods of time in the zero gravity chair, and still be able to work a full job 8 hours. And so we're really excited about that. We have two different designs that we're prototyping right now, and they're right in the middle of going into our little production in our shop. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah. So I know we've reached the end of our time. We'll keep going. And I know this is being recorded. If anyone needed to go, we probably have 5 or 10 more minutes. We'll just keep going with some of the slides that we have. There was also a question that was asked in the chat that sometimes people just don't know that a lot of this is available. And that's a great comment, because sometimes we'll have somebody that has dealt with a disability their whole life or the majority of their life, and they come in and they start seeing things that are available, and they're like, oh, I had no idea that existed. I can't believe I never knew that, you know, there was the ability to, I don't know, zip up a zipper or wash my head because I didn't have that range of motion. It's difficult. There used to be a really great catalog, and of course we're doing away with catalogs, but the question was, is there a place to go to find all of these? And there's really not that I can think of. There are some websites, but of course it's difficult to find what you need. You can Google things. People can call us, and if they had any questions, they could just ask us. And we can direct people that way. So,
but again, what we really want to do is do the evaluation, look at all the parameters, all the variables of everything they're dealing with, how their body's working, the environment they're living in, the task they want to do, and just so just looking at a list of AT devices, you're not probably going to get to boil down to the one that's most effective, that they will be able to use and reduce how much it is abandoned. So, that's why we have a whole team. It's not just like to go pick out a product and say, I think this will work for you, and send it off. So I wish it was easier.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's what we do. So
yeah. And we'll look at the disability, right? If it's a progressive disability, when I first started, I unfortunately made some errors in providing the technology that would work for them, but I didn't look a year or two in the future to consider those things. So we'll look at a lot of the needs that are based around somebody's disability. So I talked early on that we do a lot with computer access. This is a mouse that you slide on your finger. You can just slightly rub your thumb across it for mouse movement, ergonomic mice, different keyboards, all sorts of different things there. Anything to add to that, Jay? Jay does a lot.
Yeah, and there's Kent talked a little bit about using your head to control a computer with, I think who's most talking about Head Mouse Extreme, which is a camera that goes on top of your computer, and there's a reflective dot you put anywhere in your head that you can control it. But there's also a free program that if your computer has a camera or you can put on a camera, it's called Camera Mouse. And I'll write it in the chat, cameramouse.org. Basically, it's just a software you can download that takes a picture of, say you put the cursor on your nose, and then you move your nose around that one part that the computer has taken a picture of where you want it, and you can control your computer with that very simple program. And it does definitely have a lot of limitations, but it is an excellent way to see if somebody you're working with could benefit from a head control mouse system. And I think that's a great way to screen it. So I'll write that in chat.
Yeah, great, thanks. There's a question if we consult with other tech places or other states. Yeah, definitely, we do that all the time, mostly on custom built type stuff. And we're part of some groups that are nationwide, just to give ideas and brainstorm things. We'd be happy to talk with anybody that had any questions regarding technology that we know of. It's funny, a lot of people call us experts. Most of our staff doesn't consider ourselves experts because the field changes so quickly. We have a good grasp of what's out there, but there's just so much and so much we don't know. There is a lot that we know, and most often we can meet people's needs. But yeah, we're happy to consult with other people, and we're asking questions all the time also. So Chris had something about a high school student. Sorry, I didn't catch that, Chris. Maybe Jay could find that as I'm describing this one. While we're finding that, we do a lot with reading. I'd mentioned that earlier, and I skipped forward trying to find these slides. I thought they were closer. We do a lot in the schools, but then also a lot with individuals that just have difficulty reading or writing. There's a lot of different options out there. There's this C pen that's very popular. You can slide it along a page and it will read back the written text. But there's also some great apps out there. Our favorite is a free one. Unfortunately, right now it's only available on iPad or iPhones, but it's called Seeing AI, an incredible app that's free of charge. It was created for individuals that have that are low vision or blind, but we use it for a lot of different things, and mostly the ability for it to read what is on the screen. I should have had something here to read. You won't be able to see it well, but it just uses the camera, and then anything that's put in front of it, it will read it back. Sorry, I don't have anything really great to show, but it will just automatically read back whatever is being pointed at. For short text, you take a picture of a document and it will read it back. It will take the picture and then read back what's on the page. And then it does a lot of other things, from recognizing what's in a room to people. It might try to guess your age. That's kind of fun to play with.
No, it's not fun. I do not like that app. It said I was a 65-year-old man with an unsmiling face. It is not my favorite.
It's hit and miss. Seeing AI, seeing artificial intelligence. So it's a fun one, though. You can take a picture of a room, and I took a picture of my office here, and I have pencils and stuff, and it said I had a cluttered office. But it's a fun little app, free of charge. There's other apps that will do this reading back of printed text, OCR. sorry, I can't think of the OCR now, but optical scan character recognition, somewhere along those lines. So, you know, you have an individual that has a learning disability, from dyslexia to there's many types of learning disabilities. As I'd mentioned earlier, it's the #1 diagnosed disability in the school system. There's just so many individuals that have learning disabilities. And when you consider the many, many students that are never formally diagnosed with learning disabilities, I have very minor, I've never been diagnosed, but later in my, I was in college, and I started realizing that I had some learning disabilities and some reading difficulties, and I just learned to get over it. They weren't very severe, but there's so many things now that can assist students that have these learning disabilities from reading and writing, right? And I'm sorry, I keep sharing these stories. This one I'll keep really quick, but you know, for many of us here, we were given a book for a book report, say read this book, and then give me a 3-page written report. How difficult is that for these students that have a hard time reading, right? To put them in this category of reading a hard copy and then writing. So now a lot of the students are saying, here's the hard copy, here's an audio version, here's a book on tape. You can give me a report that's written, oral report, a presentation. And so we're trying to find the skills and the abilities of individuals. There's I should include this, there's a little comic that a lot of the schools use where there's a test instructor sitting at a desk, and there's an elephant in front of him, a monkey, and a goldfish, and they say, you know, your test today is to climb this tree. You know, it's just not fair to put people in this category of making them do that. So,
and I wanted to backtrack to Chris's question. He wrote, he has a nonverbal client with autism who has some work skills. It appears that he could utilize some type of communication device. He attends Park City High School. Can the client be evaluated at Park City High School, or would they need to go to UCAT in person? You can do all of the above. Also, the Park City School District should have their own UATT team that could be made to have the referral to do the evaluation for the augmentative communication device. But it also, I mean, it can happen that way, which is probably best for the school setting. But for the transition work setting, that's something that we could evaluate as well. And we would work with the UATT team and UCAT, and all of us come up with the right solution and not just a solution to get things through.
Yeah, a good answer and very good question, Chris. Typically, we do refer, we leverage those teams that are in the school district because they have that continued support. Whether they're in 1st grade or 12th grade, they have that support in the school, and typically the school has worked with them or will work with them for many, many, many years, and they can get the best support in those. So typically when we get a referral and they're school age, we reach out to that school team to have them be the first line of support for those individuals. But when we're talking about transition, it is really great when we get involved and we can start working on those work skills, because a lot of times we have a better ability to evaluate them as they're leaving the school system and going into adulthood. And well, you're with book rehab, and having them get additional help or resources that they need. So very good question.
And Chris just wrote, he's 22. So I would definitely fill out a referral and send it to us, and we'll get on it.
For sure. Yep. Reachers, all sorts of things, from shaving to somebody that doesn't have the range of motion to shave, to put on a headset. This was something quick and very easy that we adapted for a client that worked in a call center. He always had to have somebody help him put the headset on. It's not the prettiest thing in the world, but he didn't want pretty. He was looking for functional. He could put his headset on just using this post, and then he'd take the post off and he'd do his work, and just made the world of difference to him. He didn't have to wait for a coworker or somebody to come by to say, hey, can you put my headset on me? So
And also for independence and dignity, he didn't have to ask somebody.
yeah,
He could be completely independent in putting his headset on. And that was a huge thing for him.
right, yeah. Going back to that independence, that's very, very key for us. So as you can see, different types of writing aids. This was, we had a client that was a phlebotomist. They just had a lack of some fine motor skills, and they couldn't hold the test tubes. And so our occupational therapist created this that would just strap on the finger, and they could put test tubes in there while the other hand was very functional. Different things that we've adapted: a bicycle and put all of the controls on one side. So they had full shifting capabilities with this bicycle. They used the bike to get to and from work. And just use of one hand. When we went to the bike shop to buy some of the equipment for this, the bike shop was like, you can't do that. You can't put all of the controls on one side. And we're like, well, why not? You know, and because we thought this out, our shop guy had, and they're like, oh, I guess you can. You know, and it was funny that the bike shop had, of course, not interesting that they hadn't thought of this, but they told us it wasn't possible. And then once they thought it through, they're like, oh yeah, I guess you could do that. So we custom made these for an individual that worked in a dental office. They created crowns, so they didn't need the official ANSI, whatever, eye protection that they needed. We created this. They had a head injury, and any pressure on the side of the head gave them headaches and wouldn't allow them to work. And so normal glasses, safety glasses that went on the individual didn't work well. Our shop guy custom made these out of acrylic, heated them, bent them, and then this part of the area just rested on the eye socket. And so these stayed on the individual while they worked, and they were able to work more fully all day long. So this may be our final one. We talked about switch adapting things. This individual was into photography, but just, I can't remember her disability, but she didn't have the ability to hold this hand to take a picture, to press the shutter button as she focused. And so we adapted this with a switch. And we were famous for our Velcro. You know, a great farmer uses a lot of twine and duct tape. We do use some fair amount of duct tape, but our duct tape is Velcro. We use a ton of Velcro.
And neoprene.
And neoprene, yeah. So you can see that just with her arm, she's able to press this on her side or her stomach there and could take pictures. After we helped her with this, she went and got an internship with the aquarium down in Draper. So just some different things that we've done that we can help out with. So apologies, we went a little bit long. I know some people had to leave, but I know it's being recorded. If you have any questions, or if you'd like to reach out to us to have us meet with somebody that you know, a loved one, a client, somebody, you can reach out to us at one of these. Or as we'd mentioned, that referral form is important if you are officially referring somebody to us, because once we get that, it goes through our process where we put it in a database so that we can then track things and it gets assigned to a specialist. So any questions that anyone has before we